Welcome, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan, welcoming you here every single Monday, even after an eventful week like we've had this week, where most of us are lacking sleep, we're having stress with the sirens, and even if you don't have a siren, with an alert over the past week. And this is ongoing stress that we've had since October 7th. And I mention this because for most of you, you know that this program, the Monday Motivation Spotlight, was started as a result of the war in order to motivate and inspire us, as well as to give us exposure to interesting people, Israelis making a difference, whether it's business owners, nonprofits, or individuals. So I love it when those of you show up live. Thank you also if you're watching the recording. For those of you showing up live, even after the 3 a.m. wake-up call that most of us had, Kol hakavod, I take my hat, which doesn't exist, off to you for showing up live and for being here and for being inspired and being motivated. So today is a double event. For those of you joining live, it's a double event. We go through till 9:25, a 5-minute virtual coffee break, and then we're running through till 9:30 after that. So please do stay with us because we've got a fabulous time and event, and we've also got 2 sets of breakout rooms where we're going to be also sharing how we're doing during this time ourselves, our businesses, and it's a time to connect. So that being said, I'm now going to be replacing my spotlight with my guest for the day. Before I do, I just want to thank, as always, our sponsors, Nardis Advisors, as well as Eckert & Cohen Insurance. Thank you to both of them. All right, let me spotlight Elisheva. Many of you know her. Elisheva Blum. Good morning, Elisheva. Thank you for being our guest today. Who is Elisheva Blum? She is a conflict management coach. She's a mediator. She's a fundraiser. She's a mechanical engineer, a wife and mom of 3. And she grew up in Michigan, lived in Colorado, and made aliyah in 2006. So Elisheva, please share with us what you do, how you help people preparing for difficult conversations, exactly what people can get when they work with you, and tell us a little bit about your life, how you grew up, what made you make aliyah, and what made you go into this interesting profession.
Okay, thank you, Lesley. Thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, I'm happy to share my story and also looking at maybe some of the lessons I took along the way to see if anything can apply to you or someone you know. So the backstory, I grew up not so connected to my Judaism. I did not really like anything Jewish. My parents made me go to Sunday school. I hated it. They wanted me to have a bat mitzvah. I didn't want it. And then they told me I had to go to Israel after a couple of years after my bat mitzvah. And when I came here, everything changed. I found a total connection to Judaism. So, and that was my senior year of high school. I had grown up with very painful knees, and just they hurt all the time and walking. So doing all the tiyulim here for a month-long trip was very painful. And I got to know the medic very well because he was helping me along all the time, and got to know other Israelis and just fell in love with the people, fell in love with the energy. I just felt a super connection through history when I was at the Kotel. And so I went from hating everything Jewish, basically, to wanting to come back as soon as I went home. So I asked my parents if I could come back for a senior year of high school. So I did the Eisendrath International Exchange. And from that, I learned never hurts to ask. I never thought my parents would let me spend a semester of high school in Israel, but they did. So I'm very thankful for that. And I came back, had a great time, went back, and because my knees had been so painful growing up and I was good at math and good at science, I decided I wanted to be a biomedical engineer and make myself a new pair of knees, which proved to be challenging when I learned that involved a lot of animal testing, and that was just beyond what I could do. So I dropped the biomedical part and started and focused on mechanical engineering. I ended up graduating. I moved to Colorado. Right after graduation, I did another trip to Israel with Livnot U'Libanot. Started keeping Shabbat more. Started getting more and more into the Judaism, and also when I got to HP, I told my manager, I'm so happy to be here. I'd like to be helping people more than just research and development on an X-ray inspection system for printed circuit boards, just to make sure that they worked well. And there's good things about it. It was making sure that things are reliable. That helped people, but it wasn't enough. And he said, what about the environment? And I said, great. And again, I was very happy that I decided to ask him the question, because then he gave me 10% of my work time to help the products become more environmentally friendly. So I did design for environment for a few years. I did another trip to Israel and another trip. And on one of the trips, I felt myself becoming Elisheva, as opposed to the English name I'd grown up with, which was Betsy. And I decided then that I would come back for 1 to 3 years. And I didn't know what I was going to do or whatever, but I wanted to do that. So I came back and studied at Pardes for a year, and also fell in love even more. And I just kept developing more and more connection to Judaism and to Israel, and decided at the end of that year that I would make aliyah. So, and from that, I learned sometimes you have to make big, bold steps like aliyah, but it's also good to plan and take steps along the way. I continued doing environmental things. And also, I should say, I had studied at Pardes, went back to Colorado where I'd been living, and a year later came back on aliyah. And in that year, someone had moved into the apartment building where I had been living. And I thought he was cute, and he was having a Chanukah bayit because he had just moved in. And when I got there, my Hebrew, as I just made aliyah, my Hebrew was not great. And I was like, what are they speaking and what's going on? Anyway, French family, Chanukah bayit was huge. He got up to speak. Someone stood next to him, and I was like, oh, it's his wife, it's his girlfriend, whatever. And I realized she was helping him. And at the end of his speech in Hebrew, which I didn't understand at all, except Lifnei Chamesh Shanim, I'm going to cry again. Lifnei Chamesh Shanim, V'akshav ani yochol lagur levad. So that was 5 years ago, and now I can live alone. And why am I crying? 20 years we've been together almost, I still cry. He had been hurt in a terrorist attack, and it took 5 years, but he had just moved in and was able to live alone. So we started dating, and a year later we got married. We have 3 beautiful kids, and I think one of the things that I would say is so he was obviously seriously hurt. And one of the things I took from that is really understanding what's important and what are priorities. So it took him years after we got married for him to remember my name. I decided that wasn't what was important in getting married. Like, for him to remember my name, no. I knew he loved me. I knew he would do anything to help. He was a loving, doting father. And it was just like understanding what are people's motivations, what's important to me and what's important to other people. And knowing he can't remember names. Even now, he doesn't always remember our kids' names, but I know he loves them more than anything. So for me, that was a lesson about learning about what's important. While I was in between, I'd gone on maternity leave after our 3rd kid, and on the day that I decided to start looking for work, I got an email from someone at Pardes, from David Bernstein, the dean at Pardes, asking if I or someone I knew would want a temporary job. And I went, on the day I decided to start looking for a job, how can I say no? I applied. He said, even though it wasn't my field, so my field was mechanical engineering, but I took a job as his administrative assistant for a few months. I thought while I looked for a job in my field. Anyway, while I was there, I spoke with Rabbi Dr. Daniel Roth about peace, because I said, you know what, I always wanted to do peace, somehow, peace. And he said, there aren't really any. At the very end, he needed a new assistant director of the Pardes Center for Judaism and Conflict Resolution. So I got that position, and I got involved in Judaism and conflict resolution, and Machloket L'Shem Shamayim in Nine Adar, which is a Jewish week of constructive conflict. And I took a mediation class, and I fell in love. And Then Corona hit, he left, Corona hit, and I studied conflict coaching. And I went, wow, I love connecting with people one-on-one. And I love being able to help them see their conflicts in new ways and come up with ways to manage it that feel good to them and can be successful and within their boundaries, like to help them expand their boundaries, but keep their boundaries, like keep within what's important to them, but see things from new ways. So I studied and got a certification in conflict coaching. And now I work with clients all over the world, Zoom or in person, doing conflict coaching, which, as I said, I help people prepare for difficult conversations, and mediation, where we bring both sides together and I help facilitate that discussion. So they're slightly different things, but I do both, and they're in the same field. And I think what I'd like to share with that is just some of the steps and see if anything can help you, because I think we're in a time of incredible conflict, and that can play into conflict in our families or outside the families. It can play into conflict with work. And so I have a 7-step process, and I'll just run through it very briefly so you can get an idea of some of the things that can help. And I think the first thing is calm, to stay calm. And some of that is working on, who do you want to be in this conflict? Do you want to be the person that is and how you want to produce? Do you want to be the person that is focused? You have to hold your boundaries on a particular position. I need my money back from something. Or is this the type of person where you want to be known as the leader who can bring everybody together? I mean, there are different perspectives on depending on the conflicts, but either way, being able to visualize who you are and be that person in a calm way will help facilitate the rest of the process. The other thing that I help people do as we prepare is collecting information. And this is something, again, I think everybody can do on their own, but it helps to say, okay, what do I know about myself? And what do I know about other people and what's going on? Like, can I see it from their perspective, even if I don't agree with it? And so sometimes there are some poignant questions that can help you say, wait a second, where are they getting this? Where are they coming from? And to be able to figure that out. So I work with that a lot, and how to do that. And thinking about, okay, what's my position in this conflict? What happens if we don't come to an agreement? What am I going to do? What am I not going to do with this? And once you have that, then you can go into this connection. How do I connect with them so that we can have a good conversation? How can we make this constructive? How can we get through this and find the best possible solution? And then we work on communication, which is, how are you going to present this? How are you going to say what you want to say so that they can hear it? Not how, as you think it should be, like said, I want to just spill out everything. It's, can you say it in a way that they can go, oh, okay, I see where you're coming from. Let me share in a constructive way where I'm coming from and build this. So we work with that. We work with nonviolent communication, and how do you say that? There can be a formula for how do you say what you want to say. And then working on how to even create that environment to have this conversation, and how to outline it so that you're prepared. And then we work on how do you complete, how do you close it? How do you make sure everything is going to happen the way that you agree to? So basically, I mean, that's in a nutshell of conflict coaching. And what I do then is meet with people one-on-one. Sometimes I give training events on how to break this down really and implement it for specific conflict or just in general. I've worked with adult siblings that haven't been able to speak in a while, and I work with them individually, say, okay, what's going on? This happened. Okay, let's come together, and I help guide the conversation so that they can rebuild their relationship. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. As I said, I've done this on Zoom. I do this in person. I've done a 3-way mediation with roommates that refuse to even be in the same area of town together at the end. And at the end, it was great. They were like, maybe we won't be best friends, but at least we can be at dinner together. So
do you deal with personal situations as well as business conflict situations, or more personal? What would you say most of your years have been?
So it's interesting. In business, I do a lot of coworker and boss, how do I tell my boss something's bothering me type work, and also a lot of the family stuff, but more of the business going that way. And I would say, I think one of the things that's come up is that this is a very challenging time. And so there's a need to be extra compassionate. So I've talked about having the calm, but there's also an element of having like a curious compassion about yourself and what's going on now in this difficult time, or for everybody, but it applies at any time as well. So having this calm, curious compassion can help. And so one of the things that I'm adding now is emotional freedom techniques, the tapping, that can help bring calm in and can actually help with a lot of things, as well as breath work. So I'd say sometimes it's just incredibly powerful to stop, to take the breath, a deep breath, and slow things down so that you can think clearly and work on that connection, both with the other person and even with yourself, and what's important and how do you want to convey it, and then be able to do that.
Wow, incredible. We have a question here as well. Do you do couple therapy? And I see we have many professionals in the room, which would be fabulous for you to collaborate with.
Yes, I'm happy to work with couples. So I'm not a couples therapist. I'm a conflict coach. But since a lot of that is based on conflicts, sometimes small and sometimes large. So I do help couples, yes.
Right. Okay. Phenomenal. In this time, which is a high pressure, period where we could literally, people are bubbling up and their feelings are kept internally, and sometimes people can just explode with lack of sleep and the stress and everything. Besides what you've mentioned, are there any tips that you can give us in terms of moving forward, besides staying calm and all the other things that you've mentioned?
So I think the tools between the breath work and EFT, the tapping, can really help more than just, I'm just going to take some general deep breaths. I mean, there's a lot those are deep fields that can help. I think that the tapping is huge. I think getting support from family and friends is very good. I think so. One of the things I would say with if it's in general with the current situation, connecting with people is very important. I think if there's a particular conflict in the area, I think it can help to speak with someone outside of the issue. Because if you go to your best friend or your mother or your sister or a family member, they may be of the type that want to just support you. Like, yeah, you are right. You are on the right side of things, and may not be able to help you see the other side, which will help get to a more constructive solution. So I would say, don't be afraid to reach out to someone who's maybe not just on your side, to try and get a different perspective. And when you hear the different perspective, again, have the calm, curious compassion.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Elisheva, how can people reach you? We're coming to the end of your part. We still do have a couple of minutes. How can people reach you? What's the best way to contact you?
You can reach me on email at elisheva@elishevablum.com. I'm also on Facebook, Elisheva Blum Conflict Management. You can reach me there. I can put my number in the chat. And
sure, do that for the chat, but also those that are watching the recording. So you've given two options how people can reach you. Okay, great. In a nutshell, for the last 2 or 3 minutes that we do have, what do you say in terms of the conflict? I'm not talking about the political side, but in terms of conflict in Israel. If you were managing this conflict, what would you be telling people to do without getting political?
Without getting political, I think it's understanding the deep motivation behind people and what their needs are. What is important to them, and what other ways can we get those needs met? Now, sometimes there's just a conflict of needs. We want this piece like this, and we want the same piece, but in a different way. In which case, it's figuring, bringing it out even more. What are the bigger needs, and trying to just go deeper and connect, so that you can connect and work together to find a solution, as opposed to voracious or violent conflict.
Right, right. Okay. Fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much, Elisheva. It's definitely an interesting profession, and thank you for sharing your personal side of your story as well. For those of you who joined late, I do recommend that you go back and listen to the recording. If you joined late live, not if you're listening to the recording, because you'll hear it from the beginning. And Elisheva shared some very, personal and sensitive stuff with us, which I had no idea about that with you. So thank you so much for sharing it. And yes, we all have these personal things that trigger emotions within us, like it did with you. I have the same thing, as many of you saw when I did my 60th birthday bash, that I had no idea that I was going to get tearful and emotional. But sometimes we have these things in us that are building up. So thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you. I'm going to officially end the recording in a moment. So please don't log off like you normally do, but just for the sake of having separate recordings. Thank you to those of you who have joined and listened to the Monday Motivation Spotlight, your place for comfort, for inspiration, for motivation, every single Monday, where we show up no matter how we're feeling, in order to be here, to present ourselves, and to have a positive face for Israel. Thank you again to our sponsors, Nardis Advisors, and to Eckert & Cohen Insurance. We should stay safe. I'm Israel Chai. And of course, Yeshar Koach, and stay safe. Also to our soldiers, the conflict was not just about Iran, but there was a lot more beforehand. So our soldiers, I still have a son that's in Gaza a couple of times a week. So we need to remember that. To our Air Force, and to all of you, kol hakavod, for being resilient and for showing up, and especially for showing up live. So I'm Israel Chai. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week on the Monday Motivation Spotlight.